2 months ago, I made a video called The Worst Xenoblade Hot Takes. There was this thread on Reddit, I read through it, and it was quite an adventure. It was very funny, to say the least. But I didn't do that because I enjoy reading hot takes. That's not what that was about. Actually, I find them quite boring. I think that it's very easy to just hate something that's popular, it's easy to be a contrarian, it's easy to be passionate about something that you don't like, and you think that you're in the right about. So today, I wanted to do something a little different. I put a little twist on it. I made my own thread on the Xenoblade subreddits. It's called Who or What is Underappreciated in Xenoblade. To conclude Thanksgiving weekend, I was hoping to give thanks to what we find underappreciated about any of the Xenoblade games. It doesn't have to be a hot take, it could just be something you like that isn't talked about as much. So my example is the storytelling in Xenoblade 2's character designs. I put spoilers in it, I'm not going to reveal those spoilers. If you want to, you can go to that thread, or I did mention it in my 3-hour-long video essay, so you can find it somewhere in there. I made sure to note though that that is not a hot take, it's just commonly overshadowed by the obvious discourse around the character designs. And that's what I want to talk about today. Whether a hot take or not, I want to get into the unsung heroes of Xenoblade, the little things that we should be paying more respect to, but we haven't. And I know Thanksgiving is over, it's not the weekend anymore by the time you're watching this, but I still think that any time is a good time for positivity, for spreading some gratitude, and most importantly, for talking about Xenoblade. So as of right now, this thread has accumulated 48 comments. I should point out that I posted this late on a Saturday night. It was not the best time. But hopefully this video and this thread will inspire more topics like this, more positive discussion, just like this top-rated comments, sorting by best here. I think this person understood the assignment. They had a lot to say. I personally think Lora is so very underappreciated as a character. She is one of my absolute favorites. Maybe because I tend to like characters that are kind of my opposite, but just she is so optimistic, strong, nice, and sweet. She is also a tiny bit head empty, and I adore her for it. Her fighting style with punches and the whip is the coolest thing ever. The thing about Lora is that I kind of understand why she might not stand out as much compared to other characters. I mean, she is the star of a DLC expansion, this 10 to 15 hour journey. Even someone like Matthew from Future Redeemed isn't going to stand out as much to Shulk, Rex, right? Even within those 10 to 15 hours, they managed to pack a lot into there. A lot for Lora, a lot of nuance. Like, this person says that they're optimistic, and that's true, but it's a nuanced optimistic. Like, Lora doesn't necessarily fully believe in humanity. She doesn't believe that all humans are innately good or anything like that. I also do believe Noah is kinda less appreciated as a protagonist compared to Rex and Shulk, way more than deserved. But his calm demeanor is honestly charming, as it is still a very different flavor from Shulk's. His firm head brother mediator demeanor towards the Union lands is great. His TP going down to 0 a lot around Mio is even greater. This is very well written. And how he can be savage without realizing it. See his comment about Tyon's cooking. Even when he is usually emotionally perceptive, is so good. I understand where this person's coming from, because Shulk and Rex do get a lot more attention. Even if Rex is somewhat divisive, like, it doesn't matter. Rex is still very popular. With Noah, I think maybe this is a dumb thing to say, a silly thing to say, but I honestly believe that because of those comparisons to Shulk, Shulk is always going to be mentioned more than him. To give another example, it's like comparing Chrom and Lucina to Marth. To modern audiences, Chrom and Lucina are probably more popular, but Marth will always be more iconic, if anything just because he was in Melee, and he's been in Smash for a long time. I will say though, I watched a lot of Xenoblade 3 playthroughs when that game first came out. Like after I beat the game, I went on Twitch, I checked out how people were feeling, and Noah was very popular, especially with the girls. So I don't think Noah's necessarily not as represented as much in terms of the love, and I just think he's a good character by himself, and that is appreciated, even if it's not as much as Shulk and Rex. This person just simply says, monster designs. The unique monsters we all love, there are certain archetypes we love, but the monster designs themselves, I guess just because they blend into the world, personally, as much of a Xenoblade fan I am, I don't really think about them that much. Honestly, it's probably just me as a person. I'm never over the moon about monster designs in, any game. It's usually not in the forefront of my mind. Obviously, there's exceptions like Pokemon and Dragon Quest, but those are two stylistically different games compared to Xenoblade. Xenoblade, it is anime style, but they do want to have that realism in terms of the enemies blending into that world. So this is what I would call the first hot take we discussed so far, and that is Zed as a character. And here's why I know it's a hot take. Not just because of my feelings, not just because of how I know the community feels, but also because this actually has a good amount of thumbs up, but it's not considered one of the best. A lot of people have thumbed this down. So, yep, definitely divisive. They didn't really elaborate, so allow me to. Because I actually do think the Zed criticisms are overblown. I don't love him as a villain, as an antagonist. He's not supposed to be this character that you look forward to beating throughout the entire game. That's how a normal antagonist would function, right? But even compared to Xenoblade 1 and 2, Zed is very different. They went for a different approach. I understand why they didn't land for a lot of people. A lot of people do want that constant antagonistic presence, that goal to look forward to at the end of the game of beating this despicable person. I totally get that, but I think Zed actually complements the story, the narrative of Xenoblade 3. I didn't expect this one. Overdrive music in X is incredible, especially how the lyrics kick in after it end by default, so you only hear them if you successfully extend it a few times. This is what I want to see, man. These niche details that most people aren't even going to understand. I mentioned this in the last video. X's soundtrack was extremely polarizing when it first came out. I think people are more chill about it nowadays. Yeah, I just agree. I love that song. I think it sounds really cool. It feels like not too over-the-top exciting, too over-the-top hype. I don't know, it's like more subtle in terms of the excitement and how it complements the Overdrive you described really well. This one I have mixed feelings on, and that is the exploration. There were open world games before this game, I'm assuming they mean Xenoblade 1, and after it, but they just don't capture the field. The maps are not only huge, but they also feel as big as they should be, along with having a lot of platforming, changes of scenery, etc. Most open world games aren't as very interesting as these games. I agree in the sense of outside the community. I think within the community, it does get a lot of love. In fact, like, that's one of my main reasons why I love Xenoblade. Maybe I'm wrong, but I thought that was a common consensus within the community. But outside the community, yes, I fully agree. People don't give Xenoblade as much credit for its world design. Even though it's so obviously good, just looking at it, I just think about how intricate a lot of the levels are, the whole world, really, of these games are. And I compare it to these open world games, as this person says, and they're just not as interesting to me. I'm not saying they're not fun, I'm not saying they're not interesting on their own, but there's just so much more complexity in how Monolith Soft designs the worlds in Xenoblade. I mean, I'll admit that Elden Ring and Tears of the Kingdom are much better games than Xenoblade X, but did I have more fun in Xenoblade X exploring on that mech? Hell yeah, I did, baby! I'm a big fan of this comment because I am guilty of this. Basically, Xenoblade 3's soundtrack is underappreciated. I fully agree, because yes, you have the obvious songs that get a lot of love, but in terms of the general soundtrack, there's a lot of areas, like they mentioned, that go under the radar. They're just not really mentioned that much. And I think part of it is just because Xenoblade 3 is the latest game. You know, there's not as many years to listen to its soundtrack like 1 and 2. Personally, I've only beaten Xenoblade 3 once, but I've played 1 and 2 multiple times. But I don't think it's just the fact that it's the latest game. I also think it's the fact that the soundtrack is just inherently different. They're going for a different tone there, because Xenoblade 1 and 2, they are also different, but they're both bombastic, right? There's a lot of songs, even if they're just for areas, that hit you immediately. Think of Moradane. Think of Gaur Plain. Immediately, they hit you with it. Xenoblade 3's areas, their themes are a lot more subdued. Oddly, I think it's similar to Zed's case. You're not going to go in an area and just be immediately impressed by the song. No, it's more subtle. Like, that's what Xenoblade 3's narrative is. It's not this grandiose adventure that you have in 1 and 2. It's more of a low-key, subtle, thought-provoking, introspective adventure. Okay, now we're starting to get to more hot takes. It seems like the actual hot takes are lower, which makes sense because, you know, I'm sorting by best. In my opinion, it's Sharla. She's technically the mom of the group. She's always there for everyone, helps however she can. She may not be S+ in combat, but she's a sweetheart who's doing much for the group on an emotional level, I think. I'm glad you put I think at the end, because I don't agree, but... I've made a lot of jokes about Sharla, so I'm not gonna pretend like I was with you the whole time and, you know, you had a point, say it louder for the people in the back. No, I've made plenty of jokes and criticisms. you're not saying anything wrong there. You know, actually, what you're describing, I think applies a lot to Sena. Not to downplay your comment, but I think what you're saying in terms of like being there for the group, I think that applies a lot to Sena, where some people, they'll say that Sena is the most boring character because she doesn't have this like super epic active arc in the narrative. She's like more of a passive role in the party. But that's what I like about her, the fact that she has this emotional intelligence to help others, but at the same time she has trouble like coming to grips with herself. That sort of like contradiction there is really interesting, and people just don't want to like see it as much because she's more passive. She's not this active party. She's not like Uni, who's like always having this quip, you know? Also, I'm saying passive in terms of her arc. In terms of battle, no, she is always working her ass off in those cutscenes, man. So with that perspective in mind, I do see what you're saying, and I agree to a certain extent. I still think she could have gotten some better dialogue, just some better development, but I see what you're saying. I hear you. I acknowledge you. So this comment was entirely marked as spoilers. I'm gonna read most of it. I only think like part of it is spoilers. So is it weird to say Tora? Tora is such a great concept for a character, and they made him amazing. Yes, pervert no bueno, and some cringy moments here and there. How could people not see a guy who the world said, nah fam, you're disadvantaged, can't use a blade, lol. And he just made his own out of sheer determination and cleverness. People really must put some respect on that horny furball's name. I fully agree. You are right. I don't think he's amazing, but you are right in what you're saying. People focus so much on the weird horny side of Tora, when the funny thing is, he's never really actively a pervert. He never does anything. He was just low-key doing his own thing, like all of us teenage boys do, all of us adolescents do, and then he got exposed for it accidentally. I find that weird. I find that weird that everything else about his character, forget it. Just the fact that he was accidentally exposed as a pervert. That's why we hate Tora. Granted, I mean, you know, you have his high-pitched voice. He's not supposed to be this beloved character, I think. You are supposed to, like, kind of shit on him, you know? He is supposed to be the butt of the joke a lot of the times. I mean, let's think about this for a second. This is a boy, a young Napon, who had to live alone for a long time. And he just wanted some company. He just wanted some friends. He just wanted some affection. Why are we holding it so much against him that he turned out this way? You know what I mean? I just feel like there's no empathy towards Tora at all. Like I said though, I don't think he's amazing. I don't expect him to be so beloved. But at the same time, I do think people cherry pick what they don't like about Tora, and then they just define him as that character. Oh, he's the horny character. That's it. Oh, he's the loud character. That's it. Someone says Xenoblade X in general, which is yes, not too surprising. It was on the Wii U. But I just wanted to shout out the fact that they made that game. Like, you ever think about that? Like, just truly think about that for a second. Xenoblade 1 already had a hard time being localized. And then Nintendo was like, hey, how about you make a huge open world game? Like, just think about that for a second. That's crazy. Just the fact that game exists is crazy. I'm gonna be so curious about the perception of X if they do remaster or remake it. Because even though I think it'll be more positive from when that game first came out, I still believe that we're gonna see that persisting. Why is the story so bad? Why is the story so confusing? Stuff like that. If they do remaster it, I just hope that they fix some of the beginning, quicken the pace a little bit, because that's my only major gripe with that game. A few comments below is the same thing, X. So many people won't play it for various reasons. Hey, when that remaster comes out, I'm just saying, it's gonna be a great time, but there will be that outcry. There will be that voice who tells you that it was overhyped, or they just don't like it. Rex's growth is subtle, so it's often underappreciated IMO. I wouldn't necessarily call it subtle, but I think it is a little too subtle for some people. For example, we talk about anime and how there's so many flashbacks. If you watch shonen anime, there's so many flashbacks to remind you of things that happened, and some people get annoyed by that. Like, oh yeah, obviously I remember that. It just happened like an episode or two ago, or maybe it happened in the same episode. But the reason why they do that is so that these things won't happen. Where, again, no spoilers, but that crucial moment, you guys know what I'm talking about if you know. That crucial moment, most people I've seen have a good reaction to that scene, but there are a few that just completely don't get it. They just completely don't understand why Rex feels that way. And it's just like, I guess you did need that anime flashback every time. Every time Rex was put down by someone. Every time Rex had a failure. I guess you did need that flashback, because I don't know, it kind of blows my mind, because I don't think it's subtle. I disagree with this person, I don't think it's subtle. But considering how some people just don't understand why his character shapes out that way, I guess it is subtle. The fact that the music changes depending on whether or not you get the drop on the enemy in combat in Xenoblade 1. Furthermore, there's a different pair of themes for both Bionis and Mechonis. Sometimes it's the small details that go a long way. I agree with you because it's the little things. It really is. It's the little things. Of course, the gigantic things are very important, but once you have those nailed down, you need to add those little things to give your game so much more character, so much more life. In Xenoblade, you have a day and night theme. That is huge. Because I played, for example, Dragon Quest XI. People said that soundtrack was improved in the remaster because it went from MIDI to orchestra, but there's still problems because you have so many towns in that game that do not have their own unique theme, let alone a day and night theme. When I play that game, even though there's so much charm in the environments and the design, the music, it just feels like it's letting it down, you know? I compare that to Xenoblade, where no matter where I go, unique music, even if it's not solely for that place, there's still so much variety to the soundtrack that I don't feel bogged down. I don't feel like, why am I hearing the same songs again and again? And the fact that they do that in combat is pretty cool, like you said. Now granted, I didn't like how in Xenoblade 1, how when certain things happen in battle, the music just interrupts. Like, I think when you get toppled, for example, the music gets so sad. And it's like, no, I wanted to keep hearing the actual battle theme. So I think it can go a little too far in certain cases, but that's a nitpick if anything, right? What you were saying, completely right. Oh, someone actually mentions that a few comments below. The fact they give almost every area theme a day and night version is insane. I guess I beat you to the punch in this video, but you beat me to the punch in real life, so shout out to you. I wish more people talked about game feel in the Xenoblade series. There's something so addictive about each game's combat because they all feel so good to play. 1 has a snappiness to its arts, 2 has attacks that linger for a while to really feel the impact, and 3 uses momentum to give attacks weight. As Xenoblade fans, we give so much attention to the story and the world and the soundtrack because, you know, for JRPGs, that is what you're mainly there for, let's be honest. There are a lot of Xenoblade fans, they don't actually like the combat that much. And I get it, it's not necessarily this worldwide appealing thing. I played Final Fantasy XIV all the way through Endwalker, and that was fun because I was playing with my friends, right? But playing it alone, I would never really feel that immersed in it. And it's weird because, you know, Xenoblade's combat is very much like an MMO. There's just something about Xenoblade that it just feels more impactful to me. Now, before you 14 fans come at me, I didn't play every class, so I'm sure there's a class in 14 where I'll just fall in love with. But the point is that Xenoblade does have a nice combat feel. This is funny. I can see why this only has 3 upvotes. Moebius is peak, but part of the fan base isn't ready for that conversation. I've been seeing a lot more Moebius distaste over time. There's not much depth to them. They're pretty campy, but I kind of like that. I kind of dig it. I don't know. I agree with you, The Time with Ryan. I feel like it makes sense you'd feel that way. Shout out to this guy. Black Tar is amazingly stupid, and I love it to bits. You're damn right, it's amazingly stupid. That's what I would summarize Xenoblade X. An amazingly stupid game. And if you look at it as any other thing, you're probably going to be disappointed. Oh, here we go. The gacha mechanic from Xenoblade 2. It gets so much hate solely because it's gacha, despite the root of gacha's evil, predatory monetization, being non-existent. To me, aside from making collecting every single blade a bit of a grind, the gacha only adds to the experience since it ensures that fresh playthroughs give you new blades and new experiences with the game. It really shows off what gacha can add to a game as a system without the dark cloud of bankruptcy hanging over you for wanting to enjoy it. The dark cloud of bankruptcy. If they ever make a Xenoblade 2 Definitive Edition, which I think they will, I think that will happen, and I'm very excited. It deserves it. All the quality of life that Xenoblade got was after Xenoblade 2. Think about it. Xenoblade 1 Definitive Edition would not be the way it is without how much they fumbled Xenoblade 2's quality of life. But when that does happen, all I hope is that they add a way to guarantee certain rare blades. Like maybe once you beat the game, you can guarantee rare blades. That's all I ask for. I think that is the one sincere complaint where I'm like, you know what, you guys are right. It is a pain in the ass to grind that. Practically, when you're playing the game, there's not really that much of a downside, you know? It's not ideal, maybe for some of you, just because it's gacha, but again, my playthroughs, this person's playthroughs, many playthroughs I've seen on Twitch, people are just chilling. People are just chilling with the gacha. I think the gacha gets so much hate on the internet, but in practice, it's fine. Even gacha with money. I mean, you see Genshin Impact and Honkai Star Rail, all this other gacha games, they're so popular because people know they do actually like it. They do actually get into it. And is that right or wrong? I'm not going to say that, but it's fun for people. At the very least, it's fine. I think it's an overblown complaint for sure. I think Xenoblade Chronicles 2 as a whole is underappreciated. I agree it's not the strongest entry in the franchise for multiple reasons, but it's still an excellent game. The reply says, yeah, we're getting to replies now. At least it seems to be the overall favorite in the sub, and in the most dedicated part of the community. While not my personal favorite, I'm happy to see the days of hate are mostly over. It's the internet, right? It's always way overblown than it actually is. It's really just this vocal minority, same old story with the internet. But even in the Xenoblade subreddit, where you'd expect to see that, and it was like that before, but you'd expect to see it now. When you go in these subreddits, if you have some common sense, you should expect to see the vocal minority. But Xenoblade 2 is the highest selling Xenoblade game. You even go to its subreddit, you see love for it. You go to its fan wiki, you'll see love for it. It's everywhere. But there's still going to be those people who are outside of the community, who aren't seeing these things, who just heard from word of mouth because of when that game first came out, or even somewhat now. They'll just think, oh yeah, I guess that's not the one I should play. Theosaur's night theme, Tantal is full of goated tracks, but Theosaur at night just hits different, especially after that chapter of the game. And then also, someone just says fast travel. I agree with both of you. Wow, I did not believe, or I just can't believe right now that I went through all of it. I'm sure there's some other takes within the replies, but thank you so much for everybody who participated in this. This was really fun. Isn't it fun to just reflect on stuff that we actually like, that we actually appreciate? If you have your own relevant take, you can put that in the comments, or maybe I'll link this thread in case you really want to go back there and put it there. I'm so thankful. Speaking of Thanksgiving, I am so thankful that I had a good turnout, despite at the odd time that I posted this. Before I go, I have two last things to say. Number one, the day I'm recording this is the 26th, which is my birthday! So happy birthday to me. This was a nice birthday present to see all these wholesome comments. Number two, I am still working on the Bat and Kaido's video. It ended up being an hour long, so hopefully you can understand why it's taken so long. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time if these planes will let me finish this sentence without making noise. You guys don't see all the mayhem, all these things I have to cut out because they keep hovering over my house. I'm like in every plane's route, apparently. It's annoying. Sorry, I had to get out a little bit of negativity. We've had too much positivity. Let's get back to just disdain.